Hello and welcome everyone to our April 2025 Agile Boston virtual meetup. I'm Joe DeAngelis and I am very excited to welcome Brendan McSheffrey and Kevin Gulley, co-founders of the Kendall Project, that will introduce to us today the Kendall Framework. Brendan and Kevin work very closely with the governor of Massachusetts, Governor Healy, and with the state of Massachusetts to introduce the Kendall Framework in all walks of work life to help people, use AI to better their lives and better their work capabilities. So it's a great opportunity for us to learn from Brendan and Kevin and to learn how to apply this to our Agile space. So Brendan and Kevin, welcome. There's been a lot of interest in talking about AI and its impact to the workplace and impact to the Agile workplace specifically. A lot of conversation about using AI, but now we're going to actually see how to use it. And you're going to introduce that to us today. So welcome, Brendan, and welcome, Kevin. I'll hand it off to you.
We're happy to be here.
Yes,
Thank you. We're really thrilled to be here because we think the Agile community, as we have been training executives across the Commonwealth and beyond on how to use AI and how to prioritize and identify different ways to use AI in organizations ranging from law offices and accounting firms to manufacturers, and beyond banking. And we've now worked across 11 different industries. We think the Agile community has a huge advantage and opportunity to be the leaders of AI in a lot of organizations. So we're very much happy to be able to share with you what we're up to and what we're doing at a Kendall Square. We started last year. Kevin and I will just go through this. Start with this deck if we can. So let's see if it actually works. So to start with right away, Joe had the tour. We were thrilled to have Joe at a recent workshop we did with Scrum.org at Scrum's headquarters in Burlington. And Joe immediately asked whether or not we would be willing to do this for this crowd. And of course we are. We're really happy to do this for this exact reason. Agile leaders already speak the language of AI for success. And what we're going to talk about today is, these are going to be a couple of common themes across what we're doing. Is we know that the Agilists already are ready to be AI leaders if you're not already in your company. As structured user stories are structured by demand, by design. Iteration is already part of what you do. Backlogs to us look like opportunity maps for AI. And Agile is really about alignment. And what we're finding in a lot of companies is there's not alignment with AI. So as many of you may know,
there's a lot of news out there talking about AI as a new opportunity inside of organizations. But in many situations, most situations, companies are finding that it's falling short of their expectations. The biggest underlying reason for that is that a lot of companies are struggling to identify which use cases, or as we'll be talking about today, which problems they should be going out and solving and why, and making sure that AI is aligned with those problem solving is really one of the main challenges that most organizations are facing right now. And we at the Kendall Project are really working to help people try and figure out how to solve. And that's resulting in a huge gap between the success of projects relative to the way that we've traditionally been doing technology and software projects as organizations. And people are saying that in many ways, 80% of projects that people put in place for AI are failing to meet expectations or are considered failures.
So we started the Kendall Project last year after some colleagues of mine working on the AI for Impact class at the MIT Media Lab and C10 Labs Venture Studio. We we have a mission of how to use AI for job growth and to train organizations, really starting here in the Commonwealth and beyond, with this idea that we really can empower people to grow jobs using AI. The AI is not just something that the tech community, should have and be able to use alone. So we really started with this idea that the methodologies we've used as entrepreneurs and with working with over 140 AI startups over the last 4 years, that these basic methodologies that we've been using to build machine learning models for over a decade, um, they work and they're easy. And more people should know how to do these things. So Kevin and I have worked together across 5 ventures over the last 25 years, and have found that these basic methodologies that we're going to share with you today, this way of thinking, is a faster, better way to get results with artificial intelligence systems. Right now, we're working with organizations across the Commonwealth, mass bankers, mass continuing legal education, mass manufacturing extension partnership, and we're really working hard to engage industry so that folks from, if you're working in a machine shop in Attleboro, or you're a bank in Stoughton, or you're a growing company in Concord, New Hampshire, or beyond, we want people to be able to use AI in the same ways that we're seeing the startups that we work with out of MIT and Harvard. Um, there's no magic to a lot of this stuff. So as we keep saying, AI is easy. You just need a way to think about AI. So the Kendall Framework, that's very much what it is. It's a way to think about artificial intelligence and using large language models. Uh, and within a Kendall workshop, we really cover several things when we work with enterprise organizations: is the basic AI literacy. Everybody should have AI literacy and skills, how to use effective prompts and really prompt thinking. And you're going to see that a couple of times in this presentation. We always talk about ethics and compliance and the rules. AI needs to understand your rules to play your game and to protect yourself. And of course, out of all of this effort and the way that we approach things with the Kendall framework is you end up with understanding where to start and how to fit it within your organization.
So we usually start with the idea of, you guys don't need this as much as a lot of the groups we work with when we're working with a big room full of bankers. Is maybe a little bit more, but basically we always start with LLM basics. What is AI? What do you need to know? And a lot of time we'll use the analogy. It's not too much, right? You drove to work today, or you got in your car. You have a rough idea how your internal combustion engine works, but you don't really need to know too much of it. And so in this situation, it's the same way with LLMs from our perspective.
So we always do a quick overview, even for executives. So we had AI leaders. We had a room full of Harvard and MIT PhDs a few weeks ago. And even this group, what we talk about is having a shared vocabulary about how large language models work. Even when you're in the C-suite level of the IT department, having a shared vocabulary across teams always accelerates things. So we always start with talking about the classic where large language models came from, starting with at Google almost 10 years ago now, with the attention is all you need white paper. And if you don't know about this white paper, we're happy to go into a lot more detail in a different forum, and just feel free to rate anything, by the way, through this whole process. Raise your hand and ask some questions in the chat about any of these things. We can always come back and answer the questions later.
So basically, out of that white paper came the idea of the transformer, which is a methodology for taking language and transforming it into tokens, and taking those and turning into data points that computers can read more effectively. And every single major large language model out there basically can trace its genesis back to that one particular white paper, where the idea of the transformer got introduced. Because when you take written language, which has a massive amount of variability, and then turn into chunks and then into numbers, the computers are much more able to identify where connections exist and how things are related. Information from those tokens are then vectorized so that the computers can identify, while looking at all of them at once, where they're connected and how they're connected to other ideas. So if those numbers become ideas, how are those ideas related to other ideas? And those are tokens in a vector database. And then the way that AI makes sense of things is with a concept called nearest neighbor, which is actually the technical term, if you can believe it or not. So, when you're thinking about something like Boston as a city, well, Boston is, or what state is Boston in, right? You are looking at Boston. Nearest neighbors are things like cities, Massachusetts. Massachusetts is near the United States, and those are terms that are all sort of connected together by this nearest neighbor concept. And it's sort of the way our brain works, right? So if I were to ask people in this room, what's your favorite schoolhouse rock, right? You guys might go back and say, oh, it's the one about the bill, or it's the one about conjunction junction, right? It's the nearest neighbor. It's in your mind. It's connected. It's easy to grasp. It's very much how AI works. It's that nearest neighbor concept brings it to life. And the output
And mine is most certainly conjunction junction, because what's your function? And what we do know is that using a simple approach like this, by explaining large language models in this really simplistic way, it helps teams it takes a lot of fear off the table. And so we've seen people leave our workshops who are really afraid of using AI just by giving them a simple vocabulary and explaining that the basics of how they work. They're now not afraid of it. And it really is a super thing to do. And we always come back to the fact that the models are taught and trained on telling it what to pay attention to. We always use the example that, at one point in time, ChatGPT did not know that Boston was a state in the United States, or a city in the United States and a city in Massachusetts. So those nearest neighbor connections and training is really important. And of course, answers out of large language models are always assembled based on the nearest neighbor and guessing of the right word, which is why probabilistic systems, will you get the right answer? Well, probably, but there's always a bit of randomness in using a large language model. That's why the answer is always slightly different. And that randomness is sort of like guessing the next word to a song. Sometimes you get it wrong, sometimes you get the rhyme right, but the pattern is always there.
So just to go back to one last thing on the going back to that white paper idea, you don't have to flip back, right? But the idea was that the white paper theorized that if we could transform words into numbers and use this nearest neighbor concept, we can take the idea of autocomplete that we use in our Google searches or on our phones when we're texting, because I have fat thumbs and I'm horrible at texting, and you multiply that by 1 billion times, you can get artificial intelligence or something akin to artificial intelligence. People didn't think it was really possible that you'd be able to scale something that broadly and that quickly, and that you'd be able to train it with as much data as we trained it by. All that is proved to be not true. We've scaled it. We've been able to train it with enormous models and enormous amounts of data. And as we've done that, it's gotten better and better incredibly rapidly, as you guys, I'm sure, are noticing with all the news that comes out day by day by day by day in terms of what's new. And we follow this for a living, and we can't keep up with, the magical stuff that's happening almost every day right now.
So which one should you use? Well, that's up to you. We just had this discussion this morning. We use Claude, Perplexity, and ChatGPT together at the same time. We're constantly updating our context and using them all. But Gemini's getting better too. It really doesn't matter. They're a commodity, but this is one of the biggest questions we get all the time. But what really matters is context, and context is king. And when we think about context as everything you know. It's the human observable things that only you know that the AI doesn't know. So it's your precious data. It's your precious knowledge. It might be your mother's secret cookie recipe, or it could be your next patentable idea. But it is everything that you know that the AI doesn't know. And it can be anything from a document, a piece of media. It can be a recipe. Literally anything that's a 0 and a 1 that you have access to that AI doesn't, that you understand that's part of your world is context. And context is king. Prompting, which is pretty important for people to think about, is not search. And this is a key idea that a lot of users that we find in our workshops often struggle with, is that they use prompting as if it's search when it's really not. It's a prompting is actually context. So when you prompt ChatGPT, you're giving it context with every single prompt. So we always use a very specific prompting pattern, and we put this in here specifically to share with this group. And we use a prompting pattern that's based on a user story. And this is one of the key reasons that the Agile community, we think, has such a great advantage here, is that you already think in user stories. So URA, which is giving an expert persona to the AI, as I need so that, and provide the output as. That's our simple prompt structure. And when we do prompt training, it's really about prompt thinking more than it is training, because if you use this prompt structure, your ability to go from a 30% first pass accuracy with AI to an 80% first pass accuracy with AI is as simple as using a user story as a prompt structure. So personas, if any of you don't use personas, we highly encourage that you do. And it's the idea that you tell the AI what it's an expert in before you ask it or give it a prompt. So we always start as a top one, you are and you are a marketing expert. You are an expert in Scrum. You are a whatever expert, before asking it the following prompt structures. So that's it. That entire section is enough of large language model basics for most users. And we find that people do leave and get right to work on it. But we're going to transition now to talk about really the Kendall framework and how to make AI work for your enterprise and make AI work for problem solving. And we're obviously doing this. This is a 6-hour workshop that we're compressing down to 40 minutes here. So, bear with us as we, go through this really quickly. But language is the problem.
I think it's a really interesting place to start, right? The transition over, which is as technologists and people who work in technology, you guys know that the operating system of the tools you've been using for the last however many years is very different than AI. The operating system of AI is actually language, and language has unlimited variation. And that is wonderful. And it's also the problem that a lot of people struggle with when they're utilizing AI. So a big part of the Kendall framework is how to start minimizing that variation to be able to do things like remove ambiguity, remove bias from people's perspective on things, to make sure that a team is in alignment by using a similar structure to be able to make sure that we're capturing information to train our AI with, and putting you in a position to actually make sure that when it comes to that highly variable thing like language, you're able to move more quickly and more effectively with more success.
So when Claude, or as Dario talks about in this quote, when they train Claude, they're taking out variation out of Claude or controlling variation in order to get the model to do what we want it to do. And with any complex system, as many of you know in this call, with complex system, there's only two ways to get high quality output. One is you build the product and then rework it until you get to where you need to go, or you can build quality in from the beginning. Well, the Kendall framework, we're really designing to build quality in from the beginning, starting with the basic philosophies of Edwards Deming, with the idea that variation, uncontrolled variation, is the enemy of quality. Well, that's as true with AI as it is in a manufacturing facility or any other complex process. So we believe with the Kendall framework, let's build quality in from the beginning. So we built the Kendall framework is built on a series of methodologies that are the greatest hits of process engineering of all time. The most exciting things you guys have ever learned. Of course, TQM and lean manufacturing, Agile and Scrum, lean startup, design thinking, and problem curation. So we've compressed all of these to create what we call the laws of AI excellence. so that teams can have a heuristic, a series of quick rules that they can use to discuss AI. And of course, the first one is context is king. Context is the most important thing that in terms of being able to get large language models to solve your problems with you. Two, language is the raw material here. So when you're working with large language models, you always have to think about the fact that you have raw material that needs to be processed in order to get the output that you want. And then you want to assemble AI like a truck. Now, unlike traditional, uh, uh, coding, issues, with AI, you want to assemble your context one piece at a time. You're assembling context as if you're assembling parts to a truck, one piece at a time. So the next rule, AI needs to know your rules to play your game. Most people, when people struggle with getting what they want out of large language model systems for solving their problems, it's often because they haven't described to the large language models the details of the problem that matter. And we're going to come back to that. So that gets that. So that one of the more important parts of a user story, it turns out to be one of the most vital parts in getting a large language model to perform quick tasks. It needs to know why. Why is the chicken crossing the road? Well, you need to know why. Why actually matters a tremendous amount. Who anchors AI? Who AI needs a protagonist. It needs to know who it's solving a problem for. And problems fuel, I can't even talk today. Problems fuel AI, and they do. If AI knows who you're solving a problem for, it then needs to know what the problem is and enough detail about the problem to be able to solve it. AI
So
needs to know.
as we're flipping through these, I'm sure you guys can see how many connections there are to the Agile and Scrum community and why we're so excited to be having this discussion with all of you, because a lot of the stuff that you guys already do is very related, very integrated into these types of these rules, and the methodology that we pulled together to help people take advantage of it. It's very, very much Agile and lean AI is our point of the framework.
And along those lines, you know, agile is a team sport, but so is AI. And you really want to use AI as something that you do together with a team, and you share and build context together. And it is absolutely a team sport. And of course, continuous improvement is non-negotiable. So a lot of these key rules are things that all of you already know. So why problems? And we spend an awful lot of time in the Kendall framework talking about problems. And solving problems is what we all do. It's what we do internally, and it's what we do for our customers. So starting with problems is much better because ideas are vague and emotional and are loaded full of dopamine. They get us all excited, and then we don't go anywhere with them. So
And
instead of
people also will argue. They'll often be like, "Hey, I've got a great idea," and then people start shooting it down, and other people have other ideas. We found that it's very difficult to get information or data out of ideas, but it's not difficult to get information and data out of problems, and that goes a long way with helping an organization identify where they want to go, and to be able to make sure that your AI is going to help you get there.
So when Ken Beck created the user story at Chrysler back in the 1990s, I bet he never imagined that we would be using the user story as a basis for problem definition for AI problem solving. But it also, as he points out, it's also a great way to make teams align. And we first fell upon using user stories along with Ishikawa's root cause analysis while working on drone swarm issues for the Navy quite a while ago, and realizing that when you combine user stories and root cause analysis, you create structured data by allowing people to express problems one point of view at a time. And when you get lots of people expressing their own points of view about problems, one person at a time, over and over, you create lots of structured data. And LLMs love structured data. So a lot of the goal of the Kendall framework in using it this way is to create structured data using problem definition, role definition, and other context definitions. So with that, there are four fundamental contexts for enterprise AI problem solving. Number one, roles, who you are, who your customer is, who your ideal customer profile is, who your colleagues are, who. Two, capabilities, what you sell, what your solutions are, what you're capable of solving. Three, problems. What are your problems? What are you working on? What's important in those problems? And four, the processes in which the problems, capabilities, and roles exist. Where do they exist inside of your organization? In other words, we're describing a complete enterprise system with each one of these context blocks.
And interestingly, one of the challenges that a lot of people struggle with their organizations, their enterprises, when it comes to AI, is that AI is incredibly smart. It's magical in many ways, right? And the new stuff's happening every day that's even more magical. But as much as AI knows, and as much as it knows about the broader universe of knowledge that's available on the public internet, it doesn't know anything about your company, right? And so the framework of gathering information about the people, right? The company, the problems that the people have, and the processes that they exist in, creates what we would call like an industrial grade context about your business that allows your AI to go from being like sort of a precocious 12-year-old who knows something about everything to being to being a tool that's actually really helpful for your company because it knows who you are and what you do.
And each one of these areas of context, which we call context blocks, it solves a very, very specific purpose in training the AI model to get it to, or educating the AI through the right context to get it to do what you want it to do. We call these components context blocks, which are single lucid pieces of context, because context blocks takes the raw material language and transforms it into what is human relatable, machine readable, structured context. So we do this through a worksheet type form that includes a role story, it includes a user story type format, an open-ended type format, and each one of these context blocks, all in the same format, have the same objective of creating enough high fidelity context that the AI understands you at the first pass and your colleagues understand you in the first pass. So we always start with a structured articulation of a user story, and we always includes an expansive design thinking type how might we statement. So my role is open-ended. My objective is allowing for open-ended explanation, and always includes tagging that allows for the connected edges or the root causes. This is really manpower, methods, machines, materials, and measures put in a different way. So having all of these pieces put together creates lucid context. And when you add a role context, a problem context, a process context, and put these all together, you end up with not just super context, but limited list applications for getting AI to do what you want it to do. So deep research, backlog optimization, go-to-market strategies, venture startup testing, and HR planning. That's just a start, because there's always a different role, a different problem, and a different process. And when you combine these pieces, you end up with prompting that has complete lucid understanding of what it is that what your intent really is with the AI. So these all work because we're creating interdependencies, a blueprint, if you will, for LLMs to follow by using the connected tags, the connected user stories, and the connected open-ended statements.
Just so you guys know, and it's actually a good slide, Brenda, flip to that next one. We as the Kendall Project, we have been putting on workshops with all these different associations and these different industries with different customers, where we bring their teams together to go through the process of defining who they are, what their problems are, what the company does, what the processes are that they work within. Really fun, interactive day. But the reason for that is because, as Brendan was saying, the context and the super prompting, when you create that level of information about the organization, about the people who work there, the systems they use, all the different information that's gathered in this sort of really fun, interactive workshop, you've trained the AI in so much information that when you start prompting it, at that point, it has so much context to draw on, both internally and externally, that your outputs are going to significantly accelerate.
And can I mention that I actually saw this happen. So I was working with this framework and I saw very different results when I gave it a problem in a context from doing that. In, like, for example, I would attach the Scrum guide in the prompt. I would say, hey, I'm attaching the Scrum guide. Here's the rules of the game to follow. And when I did that, the AI gave me such a better answer because it actually said, and this is why this will work, because it actually quoted things out of the Scrum guide that where it got it from. And Jeff Sutherland said something in a podcast a while ago where he said, you know, the AI is full of a lot of information. Not all the information it has is correct. And he wasn't getting the right answers until he fed it his red book, which is doing, you know, twice the work in half the time. When he fed it his red book, then he started getting a lot better quality. So I think that's what you're talking about when you're saying context and the rules of the game is feed it as much information, correct information as you can, and it will give you a much better answer.
Well, the AI does not know your business. It doesn't know you. It doesn't know your team. It doesn't know your problems. And if those are not clearly articulated with explaining all the edges of the problem, then AI is not going to get it. And so it needs to know your rules to play your game. So AI is absolutely a team sport. So when we do these workshops with enterprises, the first thing that we do is put everybody, we have everybody fill out a worksheet, a role form, a problem, and then have everybody do 3 sprints or 3 sessions of problem definition. And when people are doing those, we then have people stand up and they do sticker voting of which problems they think are the most important ones. So we're getting even more opinions. And all of that detail comes together to help align teams. So we get all the role definition, lots of problem definition. We have everybody in the team in the enterprise workshop fill out a capability statement, which explains what their organizations are capable of and what they solve. And then we have them fill out the process, some process definitions in the same way that then allows the LLM to understand the processes of the business or the organization. So when you combine all of these things into one super context and then start prompting the LLM, you start using it with ChatGPT, it understands you and your business before you've even started to use prompts. So getting teams to work this way, it creates an extraordinarily smart LLM to help for your day-to-day problem use and problem solving. So we're going to talk a little bit about agile use case here with the backlog optimization. Every one of our problem sheets has a prioritization estimate on it because one of the things that is crucial in getting the vectors to work and getting cluster analysis to work to be able to cluster problems together and understand which problems are similar. Part of that is understanding importance. How important is something to solve? So in every problem sheet, we have people fill out how urgent is it to have a solution, how much value will be created, and how much is it worth spending on. And these are, of course, just estimates. And the point is to get people to talk about how important a problem is to actually solve. And it's shocking how many times in our workshops people will say, well, this is my problem, but it's not urgent. Well, if it's not urgent, it's probably not a problem. So we do that, and then we do a cluster analysis to identify.
We should say we take all the information that comes out of these and we toss it in AI.
Yes, we
and
give it to
then we
AI.
run a cluster analysis.
Yeah. all the role data, all the problem data, all the data comes together. We give it to AI and we look for where are the commonalities of the problem so we can build a stack ranked backlog of all of the problems that an organization wants to solve. These are actual problems from a SaaS company that ran it with a Kendall workshop, and they rearranged their entire workflow for the next 6 months based on the problem definition that their teams did. And they're all stacked ranked based on voting, urgency, and importance scores. All those prioritization scores come together. And out of that, you end up with a backlog where you not only have a high degree of problem definition, you also have a high degree of role definition. And when you go to solve the problem, you have process definition that goes along with that as well. So you're getting a real 360-degree context understanding of the actual user need before you move to try and solving it. And that's one of our core beliefs with AI is to find the hell out of the problem before you ask AI to solve it. And spend that extra time up front.
I will also
So
I will also say that interestingly, some of the things that come out of AI, when you take all this information and put it into it, AI is going to say, well, that's not really a problem that the agile team and the technology team inside the organization needs to actually handle, because this should be able to be handled with good context and a prompt, right? And you'll be able to identify, people will come back and say, oh, I need so and so and blah, 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 right? And it's, if the information is gathered and used effectively, you should be able to identify which of those are really just capable of being handled by a prompt, and the person can handle on their own, which is wonderful for backlog management as well.
So when you run these, when you build context this way and do prompting based on context block structures, your first pass accuracy more than doubles, and your rework gets cut in half, and your token use goes down by as much as 70% in some cases. So it's immediately getting you to a much faster, deeper, better result. So, and what we also see out of the workshop is identifying, we very quickly identify the problems you don't want to solve, which is a huge problem in backlog optimization is, you can't solve every problem. So which one should you solve? Well, this very quickly identifies which ones are either low priority, bad fit, and then where are there quick wins that, there's actually one of the things that we look for readily is where are there problems that just a prompt can solve? So, so some examples of this, is out of the banking industry, for example. One of the top priority problems is often customer service, and in that we very much are able to take the problem definition, give it to ChatGPT, and create things like sales scripts, customer service bots, marketing programs. All very, very readily can come out of the problem definition part of this. So it's really about focus, where you want to focus on, and reducing your time. Building by taking all of the data, you're getting happy connected vectors, and a happy team that has alignment on AI and which problems you should be solving with AI. So, Kevin? I think you're on mute. You are on mute. So one of the things that we're trying to do is the worksheets, will make them available to all of you in the chat. And we have, we've made the core worksheets are available under Creative Commons, because we want people to use the core methodologies and spread that.
Yeah, so we want to make this as available and free flowing as possible for people. It's important for us to get folks like you engaged, and we'd love to follow up with any of you that have additional questions about that. I will try and grab the links here in a second and toss them in the chat for some of those open source worksheets we have. Much for the forward, Brent.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting the to connect.
Ah,
We're working on right now with a Kendall framework for Scrum with scrum.org. And if any of you are interested in certification on this, and again, this and a lot of this method is entirely designed to engage everybody from the loading dock to the boardroom. It's trying to take AI down to a simple language that makes it accessible for the entire team. And one of the things that we strongly believe, and we talked to Joe about this, and Dave West at scrum.org and others, that we believe that this is an opportunity for the Agile community to grow. We think that there's a lot of pressure right now in the Agile community to prove results. There's been a lot of people that have used Agile and the Agile terminology incorrectly over the years. We think AI and the problem definition approach and the role definition approach that we have in the Kendall framework, when you combine Agile and the Kendall framework, we believe it's an opportunity to grow Agile teams inside of companies. And we believe that Agile is the way that organizations should be addressing AI, because continuous improvement is absolutely non-negotiable in order to get what you want out of artificial intelligence and large language models. So with that, we are open with this community, just as to follow the core principles. Our framework is a growing. It's not codified in stone. We are open to suggestions on how to improve it. We are working on right now on a advisory approach to and version control, if you will, of the Kendall framework as a whole. But with the overall goal of making this so easy that Agile teams everywhere can adopt it, and that the person, whether they're a bank branch manager or a teller or the bank president, can all speak the same language about AI and use it readily. So there we go. We have a 30-day accelerator program for enterprises that we are happy to talk about. Which again, this is we just did in 40 minutes what we generally cover. We do a lot more in 6 hours, and we get into details about ethics and literacy, and really go in deep on how to do prompting and make sure that people leave with good prompt thinking. And then we take all of the data collected in one of our workshops, and we build an enterprise RAG model with it.
so that's
So
either inside your existing AI system, or we can help you put together a private RAG model with a tool like Custom GPT if necessary. But the idea is that we would do a workshop with your team, train your team. We'd have a follow-up workshop focusing on the key priorities that came out of it and the key areas of focus. We build that foundational context by having people fill in all of the worksheets, teach them that methodology. We're training everybody. They're leaving knowing how to define their challenges, their problems. It's a learned vocabulary that everybody in the company can now share. We turn that into data. We put that into an AI model, and we help you guys put together a roadmap about what the key priorities are. This kind of roadmap capability is something that we feel could be extremely useful to the Agile team, the Scrum team inside of an organization that's needing to prioritize the projects that they work on, and also extremely valuable in terms of getting the right information from team members about what it is that they would like you to do and why. So utilizing the role information, the problem information, those worksheets and context blocks, hugely valuable for the Agile team.
So what also comes out is an AI readiness report, which will immediately we give all of the clustering analysis and how that was done and where the data is and what the data leads to. Where should you start with AI? That comes out pretty readily, and we do all of this for a 22.5 package because our objective is to get your teams using AI quickly. And we train up to 60 people at a time. And we're also, again, moving to an online model with that. And we have an awful lot of, a large number of very happy clients that have been through our workshops, and happy to talk with any of you on that. So, Joe, you had talked here. We talked yesterday, Joe, about about one of the challenges you were having with prompting. You want to talk about that?
Yes, I think everyone would love to see an example of your framework in action. And yeah, the problem I gave you yesterday, I think would be a good one to show because it's a real and very common agile problem in the agile space.
So the prompt structure that we used yesterday, and is the classic prompt structure that we just showed. And Joe, just bear with me for 1 second. I didn't have that your thing up, Joe. In the
Yes, JOS.
meantime, happy to answer any other additional questions.
Right.
So we had yesterday when Joe and I spoke, Joe had you were using a prompting structure. I'm going to bring up my chat GPT here and share that with everyone. Stop share and share.
And note with this prompt, I did download the 2020 Scrum Guide and attached it uh, to the prompt also.
So the we built yesterday a really what is a kind of a detailed prompt using the exact same structure that we talked about earlier. And you are an expert in Scrum team management and team collaboration across departments in large organizations. As a lead Scrum Master in an R&D organization with 6 specialized Scrum teams and 3 product owners who own features but are not aligned to specific teams, I need a better way to conduct feature refinement sessions that include the right product owners and all relevant Scrum teams so that features can be effectively refined despite team specialization, product owner schedule challenges, and enable smoother implementations across multiple teams. The task is identify and propose improved coordination or facilitation methods that ensure the appropriate product owners can engage in refinement sessions with necessary Scrum teams. Use the Scrum Guide definitions of Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Scrum Team to ensure alignment with best practices. Now, one of the things that you can all see is this is a long prompt. And one of our arguments with the Kendall Framework is put the time and the energy up front to doing this definition because AI will drift. It will start giving you answers to, if you don't define the role, it'll make one up. And so let's see what there's just outright. Let's see what it gives us as an answer. And I will post the both of these right in the chat stream in just a second here. Oh, it won't allow me to post the entire prompt. It's a little bit too long. So
Maybe you have to post it in 2 parts or something.
Or just toss it as a Google
Right.
Doc.
Yeah, and the idea here is that you don't have to you can put this in your own AI and like I said, attach the Scrum Guide to this so it knows what the rules of the games are, and you can get a really detailed output like this.
it really is an amazing thing that the user story. How many people on this call use a user story in your prompting? Can anybody raise their hand? Does anybody do that?
I do now.
it is it it seems counterintuitive because a lot of people, think of it as um, a lot of people I know can get annoyed about user stories because we all use them so much that they can kind of lose their power, that you're going, wow, you know, I've read so many of them, I stopped seeing them. But it really turns out one of the reasons they work so well is you're not just communicating with your colleagues with the user story format, you're communicating with the machine. And by giving the machine structure repeatedly, you're getting the machine picks up on that pattern. And the going back to the Kendall Framework rules, who anchors AI? So as a role. So if
You are a, right?
yes,
Persona.
role.
Yeah.
And those anchor the AI so it doesn't drift in multiple directions because you are an expert in accounting. It becomes entirely different than you're an expert in manufacturing production, or I am a CFO is entirely different than I as a CFO is entirely different than as a production manager. And so then the I need might be the same, can be different across all of those too. So it's really a very, very powerful way to think about problem definition and prompting.
And you
Yeah,
may
and
think
I,
about, remember that one back that we had that with the chicken crossing the road, right? So that gets that, right? That the I need this so that I can accomplish X, Y, and Z. That's incredibly powerful to an AI in terms of getting it to pay attention and focus where you want it to focus.
and I love the output format as well. Tell it how you want the solution to be shown. Like for example, I told it put it into a PowerPoint slide or put it into a Miro board, and it did it for me,
Hmm.
which is pretty powerful also. So I would suggest, and this is what I did yesterday, and that's what I was amazed with, is just put in the prompt the way you would normally put it in, get the output, and then use this framework, and you can see the difference in quality, and it's amazing. It's like night and day.
Well, that first prompt accuracy actually matters. People think, well, it's AI, it's not all that important. Well, if you get first prompt accuracy down, your likelihood of having AI drift it drops dramatically. And the flip side is if you don't give it enough context in the first prompt, it will hallucinate. It will make up the answer and try and take you in directions that you don't want to go. So it is really imperative to train the AI up front. So that classic axiom, you can either get the solution, then rework the defects, or build quality in from the beginning.
Does anybody have any questions while we've got a few more minutes?
You see one here.
Oh
How
yeah,
do you
great.
train the AI for the tone that you want it to respond with?
It's funny, Linda. When Brent and I many years ago, we had built a consulting company. The biggest vertical industry that we worked in was trade media companies, right? So they were, you know, expert at and trained us in the idea of how do you create an editorial voice, right, for a particular, newsletter or for a magazine. They would take hours and hours to go through the methodology of creating an editorial voice. So we've actually created a persona worksheet because it's really important. This is who you are, right? But whenever you write as me, this is what I want you to do. So some of the things we suggest are number one, as a so-and-so, when I'm doing this, I want you to do this so that I get an output of blah, blah, do a little user story around it, right? But a great sort of really easy thing to do is spend 5 or 10 minutes doing two things. Number one, grabbing a dozen or half a dozen emails or things that you've written that you feel are really well done that represent your tone of voice and uh, your best writing, and then secondarily put together what we call an is not, right? My tone and what I want to come across at is this, but just as importantly, so that could be things like I want to come across as earnest and humorous and intelligent. I do not want to come across as snarky or pedantic. Or you come up with an is not, and you just put in 5 or 10 adjectives not conjunctions, but adjectives that describe what you want to come across as and what you don't want to come across as. Put that into a document and say, this is my editorial voice. And it's amazing how much more everybody start writing like you when you give it a few examples and you tell what your is not is.
And so, Linda, we are building context block forms for just about every of the major use case that we're running across. And one of them is personas, because you do want the AI to perform in the exact persona that your sales. So if you're building a sales bot or a customer service chatbot, you want it to have a very specific persona. So that is something that we are working on, and software is another one. Tone's important. There's a number of different ones like that. William, do you have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Yes, I do. Thank you very much. So I've used ChatGPT, and let's say I use it on a Tuesday, and I have a nice back and forth with it. And then I want to log off and go to sleep and come back the next day on Wednesday, and I'm starting over again. Is there a way for it to have a memory so that you can log out and come back the next day and pick up where you left off? I guess that you'd call that one long transaction.
Do you use a paid version?
No.
Okay, so the paid version does have a memory, but memory
improving all the time.
Yeah, and the memory is getting better all the time. We actually use multiple models, and we pay for the subscription. But if you're not going to pay for the subscription, one of the things you can do that is really simple, basic blocking and tackling, make sure that you share both the context that you give it, but as well as what you get back into documents in a folder that's readily available. So that's because that becomes the context for the next conversation.
Okay, feed it back when it fed you.
Yeah,
right.
I actually did that. I had to design my master bedroom, and I gave it a bunch of stuff, and it asked me for more stuff, and it asked me for more stuff, and then I ran out of prompts for the next 24 hours. So what I did was I built out a large prompt with all that information, so that the next time I was able to go in, I gave it all that stuff up front, and I got a much better answer. I got the context. So it goes back to that context is king.
You're totally right. So I would say also, going back to William's question, so two things that you want to make sure you're going to do as well. Number one, instead of just starting a new chat and saying, hey, do you remember when we were talking yesterday? Go into the chat stream that you were talking in yesterday and say, hey, refresh yourself on everything we talked about, right? As the very first thing you put into the chat stream that you were in with it yesterday, because it's going to save that in your left-hand side, right? Go back into that chat stream you were having, and then start creating new chats for different topics that you're going to come back to consistently. Like I have one, we're doing event promotions, right, all the time. We're promoting new events. So I've got an event promotion chat, right, that I go back into whenever I need to do event promotion. I say, hey, refresh yourself. I'm doing more event promotion, right? I always go back to that because that is really great context. I'm like, refresh yourself on everything we've done here. Let's have another conversation, right? It's a nice way to do it.
Thank you.
Secondly,
it's a great question.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we're at time. We're 1 minute before time. So Brendan, Kevin, thank you very, very much for accepting our invitation to present today. It was a great presentation. A lot of people are wondering how. They hear that they can do it. Now they know how. Now they know how to get to the Kendall Framework and know about the Scrum.org class. I will post this presentation up on our YouTube channel, Agile Boston, within a week. So please, if you can, subscribe to our Agile Boston YouTube channel. Hit the like button if you like any of the content there. Also, join our LinkedIn page, Agile Boston. We have a group on LinkedIn. We're looking to get close to 200 now people. We're close to it, so we'd like to get over that hump. So if you're not a member of our Agile Boston LinkedIn group, please join the group. We'd love to have you. That's where I post a lot of our podcasts, a lot of our upcoming events and so forth. So with that, I want to thank you all very much. Our next event will be the 4th Wednesday of May. And we'll be looking forward to, and then also remember that Scrum.org class that Kevin and Brendan are going to kick off in June. I think that'll be a lot of fun to do that. Okay, with that, thank you all very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye now.